Hello, students of A Perusable Feast. I'm here to provide your weekly lectures. I don't like to call them lectures. It's more just me kind of talking about the way I approach the subjects covered in our class. So last week there ought to have been a video for imagery, and this week there should also be a video for subtext. We're going to accomplish both of those things in this one video. You probably saw for week 1 on imagery the video by a previous instructor, and he does quite a good job describing imagery, so I'm just going to add on things that I feel are important or may expand your view of what imagery might mean to you, and then we'll get into subtext. And so first thoughts I would say is that I'm really excited and looking forward to reading your work on specialists and NAIFs. In terms of the way I provide feedback, I mostly try to be an observer, and that I'm looking for, especially this early on, examining your writing style rather than telling you how to write. I don't think it's super useful to tell writers how to write. It's more of just an awareness of how a piece does what it sets out to do, or how it diverges from how it set out to do, both of which are good. So as I read your pieces for week 1, that's what I'll be doing. I'll probably point out things to you that I notice about your style. Maybe it's like you have really varied sentence structure, or maybe your sentence structure is more uniform or consistent. Ways that a reader can enter your piece, ways in which you either provide clarity or opacity, obscurity. I'll just be making notes of what kind of writer you are, and maybe find out what kind of writer you want to become. So keep an eye out for my comments on those posts, and it will be the same every week going forward. And so also, if you want to give me a better sense of what your writing tends to do or seeks to do, feel free to send me longer pieces via email. That's super useful to me in terms of seeing what your body of work looks like versus, sort of spur of the moment exercises. Do what feels right to you. Okay, imagery. So imagery is a pretty fundamental part of writing. Imagery allows readers primarily, to enter a story. We live in a culture that's so visual. We're bombarded, inundated with visual signifiers, visual data. You can think about social media. You can think about television. You can think about even school. In school you're in person, and your primary mode of experience is visual. And so we can think about the ways in which imagery, which often is visual, allows readers an entry point beyond our weird little scribbles, our lines that make letters and words and sentences on a page. Images are what facilitate imagination and entry, vividness, lushness. They're fundamental to providing a reader access not only to plot, but also to detail, to description, to emotions, evocation, things like that. So when you approach imagery, you want it to be precise, and precise in a way that is unique to you. Often we see things strangely in the world, right? It may be happening in the back of our minds, but sometimes maybe I think I can give you an example. So this past week I was on a walk, and I saw something in a field. I saw this blurry brown object, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's a cat. I have to go see this cat. And so I look closer, and I see it's a trash bag. And I was sad, but this sort of mistake could be implemented into imagery to convey a character's desires, a character's wants, and then, disappointment. Something we thought was a living, breathing creature that perhaps we could nurture is actually just a piece of refuse, a piece of plastic that is litter, is hurting our world rather than developing and creating into it. So you see that's an example of the ways in which sometimes misseeing things can offer literarily insight into a larger picture. So strangeness, I would encourage you, strangeness and precision in strangeness is excellent to readers. It develops your tone, it develops your worldview, and it is subtextual, which we'll get into the later part of this video. Imagery can also not necessarily be visual. It can be sensory, you know. Vision is a sense, however, it's our primary sense, for most of us at least. And so, imagery goes beyond what we see. Descriptions that are tactile, describing fabrics, describing the feel of wall, you know, a body immersed in a bathtub of lukewarm water. That's imagery. And it's not, a reader sees it in their minds, right, visually, but it's a sensorial display. You know, the coffee smelled citric. It smelled, you know, it smelled like cigarette ash. The specificity of that is better than just saying he sipped his coffee. And the reason it's better is because it's more detailed, it's more thorough, it immerses a reader into the world via its precision. Right, and so that's really the examples of imagery and how they work. In terms of implementing it, it's a balance, right? It's a balance of, you don't want overly lush depictions unless the scene asks for that. So the ways in which we temper our imagery are through vacillation, through creating dynamics in the piece, craft-wise. And because this is a craft-based course, I'm gonna walk you through the way in which I would do that. So we want a scene to be, we want its language and its craft to evoke the narrative of the scene, right? So a character walks into a doctor's office. This is a sterile depiction because you're in a sterile place. You know, shorter sentences, descriptions that are sterile and clinical and convey, you know, convey the sort of, the distance between internal feeling, which may be anxiety, which may be worry, which may be relief of seeking help, with that sort of more, that clinical setting. Right, and so the clinical depiction there is shorter, is briefer, is precise. And then, you know, perhaps returning from the doctor, one is in one's thoughts. And so there's your opportunity to provide imagery in a place that may just be internal dialogue, right? She felt the blood course through her veins, you know? She felt her heartbeat as if she'd never had one, you know, things like that. They're images and they also convey information. Yes, okay. I think that's all I have to say about imagery. And my advice would be, you know, in this course to take it to its fullest extent. Like, I think I said that in my first video. But yeah, don't be afraid to make an image that doesn't necessarily work, but that is the furthest thing from a cliche, you know? If it doesn't work, you've expanded your language capacity in writing, and you can find a way to make it work. You know, the basketball looked like a green moon or something. It doesn't work perfectly, but you're seeing things in a unique way. And so with practice and pushing yourself further, you'll hone those images and it'll be wonderful. Okay, moving on to subtext. I'm sorry this video is going to be so long, just bear with me. I'll try to keep subtext briefer. In terms of subtext is, in my opinion, the number one way to craft successful writing in any kind of writing, you know, a presidential speech, a heartfelt poem, a film, you know, a conversation with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or what have you, a college essay, things like that. Subtext is everything. And so what I mean by subtext is not being explanatory. If you're writing a personal essay or you're writing a story that's personal and you're experiencing something really intense, it does a reader no good to say, this was an intense experience, or I felt so sad in this moment, even if it's true. What you want to do subtextually is create an atmosphere in which the intensity is inherent, is evident through depiction or dialogue. Craft a scene that doesn't have to be explained in language that is judgment-based. To say it was intense, that's a judgment. It's fine to make judgments in literature, but if you want to craft a compelling scene, we have to let readers do work on their own, even if that work is occurring beneath the reading process, beneath examining plot. And so ways to create subtext that convey that that judgment you make on the scene are, this was an intense moment, I felt sad. You describe things in such a way that that it evokes that. Instead of the scene made me, this was a sad moment for me, you could say things like, you could describe body language, you could describe physical processes. You could say, I didn't want anyone to see me cry, and so I wiped the tears away when I pretended to cough. Something like that. It's honest, it's vulnerable, and it shows you're sad, but it also shows another fundamental element. Things like that. Or another scene, or another way to describe sadness that doesn't explicitly say I was sad. After I left, I saw the grass and felt that each blade was a tiny person with a tiny life that would just be mown down someday by a lawnmower. Something like that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but it's vivid, and it presents a worldview and a way of seeing and a way of thinking and a way of expressing that conveys sadness without saying I was sad, and it does it better. I'm not saying everyone is a blade of grass does it better, but I'm saying something like that, something that has a remove from explanatory language is often more effective, because again, like I was saying in imagery, it gives the reader work to do in their head, allows them to envision a person and a scene and a feeling through their own mind, instead of being told what's happening, being told how to feel, told what to do. It's freeing in a sense, and develops a conversation between reader and author. And ultimately that's the goal, to develop a conversation between intent and absorption by an external force, by a reader. And so in terms of writing subtext, you can do it through dialogue. We'll talk about dialogue in another week. You can do it through imagery like we talked about. You can do it through sentence structure. I'm kind of a nut for sentence structure, for syntax. So I would say, if you're doing it in terms of sentence structure, instead of saying, I felt anxious, I felt like I was spiraling out of control, you craft the scene with sentences that are that convey anxiety. You do long sentences with lots of commas to show a sort of overwhelm of thoughts, an overwhelm of information, of feeling. And so then you don't have to say that your narrator feels anxious or you feel anxious, because because your reader will feel it with you. And so that's subtext. I'm gonna cut the video short here now. If you have any questions, if you'd like to have a conversation outside of these videos where I just talk to you and I don't get to hear from you back, let me know. I'm happy to Zoom with you or read your work. If you feel like the pieces for the week's reading don't fully answer your exploration of the subject, let me know. I can recommend others. Okay, that's it. Looking forward to next week's video. Looking forward to reading all of your work from week 1, and happy writing. Thanks.